United States National Intelligence has just released a report on the falsification of intelligence data by the Obama administration. President Trump has called for the arrest, no less, of the former head of the White House, Barack Obama. Trump accused his predecessors of fabricating accusations of collusion with Russia against him. He posted this on his Truth Social page. This was on January 29. Let me explain why this actually changes everything, why this is the first time in the history of the United States of America, and how it is different from all other accusations made by a former president. United States intelligence has published a report on the falsification of intelligence data by the Obama administration. The document talks about fabricated accusations against Trump's campaign headquarters. We're talking about 2016 in connection with ties to Russia. In August 2016, a United States Department of Homeland Security employee informed the former head of intelligence, James Clapper, that there were no signs of any threat that Russia could manipulate the vote count. However, this information was concealed. The United States Office of National Intelligence and the Department of Homeland Security, all those guys at the top under Obama, they hid all of this, swept it under the rug, as they say. Trump believes that the released documents prove that Obama personally ordered CIA agents to fabricate false accusations against his political opponent. This was an attempted coup by Barack Obama and his cronies. It's time to pay for it, to arrest Obama. This is what Trump wrote, but gentlemen, this is only the beginning. After Trump's victory in the 2016 election, the investigation into the collusion with Russia was conducted by a commission led by special counsel Robert Mueller. In the published final report, the special counsel acknowledged that despite constant statements from his team members claiming they had full evidence, in the end, no collusion was revealed. It was not discovered, not found. It did not exist. That is, later the investigation by another special counsel, John Durham, so to speak, came to the conclusion, and led everyone else to the conclusion, that Fulbauer basically had no sufficient grounds to start an investigation against Trump in the first place. All of this was made up, fabricated, so that there would be no other reason. Durham concluded that the FBI, when it started the investigation into what they called Russiagate, had no evidence at all, no evidence of the Trump campaign's collusion. No evidence of the Trump campaign's collusion with Russia. And to put it mildly, it relied excessively on information received from Trump's political opponents. Well, read Clinton. Durham also found that during the investigation of the case, in the case involving Hillary Clinton in 2016, the FBI did not show the same zeal. What does this say? It shows that this federal bureau was working in the political interests of the Democratic Party of the United States. And here they set themselves up. On October 13, 2022, in Alexandria, Virginia, just steps away from Washington, a trial began against a native of Perm, a city familiar to us, Igor Danchenko, who turned out to be the main source of information for the long-discredited collection of fake stories about Donald Trump, known as the Steele dossier, named after its author, former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele. This dossier became the basis for the entire Trump-Russia collusion case. The 44-year-old defendant, who had Russian citizenship and a United States residence permit, was accused by prosecutors of lying, the FBI. The high-profile Trump-Russia collusion case from 10 years ago was originally built on fake information from the FBI. United States intelligence realized this immediately. However, Barack Obama, who was the president of the United States at the time, to put it mildly, ignored the intelligence findings. and gave orders based on completely falsified data. He knew that they were falsified. To initiate an investigation against Trump right during the 2016 election campaign, which certainly could certainly directly influence the election results. It's a miracle it didn't. Let's discuss why this matters now. More compromising declassified documents, emails published by the CIA director. This is the current John Radcliffe, the current Trump appointee. They show that Hillary Clinton conspired, and not just by chance, she conspired deliberately. It worked. It didn't just happen with the intelligence community and, as they say, with George Soros, with the goal of overthrowing the United States government in 2016. Let me repeat in case anyone missed it. Hillary Clinton colluded with the heads of the agencies that we call the security services. With those people who were at the head of the White House, including Barack Obama, and with George Soros for the purpose. Why Soros? That's money. Accordingly, the overthrow of the government of the United States of America, meaning the president and so on, who took power in 2016. The documents declassified by CIA Director John Radcliffe at the Olympic level, they are emails from the terrorist fund of George Soros, Open Society. I call it terrorist because it is terrorist. They truly deserve such an honorable title. What does it say there? This will be a long-term campaign to demonize Putin and Trump, meaning they tried to demonize two people, Putin and Trump. By the way, at that time, Trump was being demonized by the President of the United States of America. The idea approved by Ken Clinton was to link Trump to Russia as a way to distract attention from her own missing emails. Her husband bombed easily Belgrade for 62 days when it was necessary to distract attention from Monica Lewinsky and the famous stain on the dress. And for her, everything was easy. Let's distract attention from the missing the 30,000 emails she erased. And as someone wrote, like that woman who worked for her who actually came up with all of this, this should reach an Olympic level. Now it will serve to boost the ratings after the party convention, as was said there. Later, the FBI will be ready to add fuel to the fire. That is, they used it easily. They understood that the FBI, the CIA, and everyone else would salute and do whatever was needed. Dear beloved party, in this case, not the communist one, but the democratic one, it sounds a little different, but the meaning is the same. In other words, yes, Barack Hussein Obama was there, taking things to the Olympic level, to the highest level you can imagine. He ordered a fabricated report as part of what Tulsi Hubbard calls a conspiracy to stage a coup to overthrow the government of the United States. When it was 2016, President Trump, a different party. And let's try not only now, but we'll also see the long-term efforts to remove the legitimately elected President Donald Trump in 2017, which began in January, the 45th term. This was followed by 2 impeachments, numerous investigations, arrests, indictments, raids, and, by the way, 2 assassination attempts, and ultimately the overthrow of the government in 2020. Next, a key nuance. Representatives of the Democratic Party in Congress and the Senate, as well as governors of all Democratic states, are absolutely united in resisting the requirement for voters to present their identification at elections. I am me, here I am me. The Democrats start having real issues when someone talks about this as a person. Well, there was a member of Congress who was shouting so angrily that he felt unwell. And yes, he was hoarse from yelling, but he couldn't utter any coherent words. For example, take a look at the attempt to sort out this issue in Arizona, so new elections are coming up. Gentlemen, we have them in November, just around the corner, as they say. The state of Arizona is known for constant fraud and ongoing manipulation, and a member of Congress summoned representatives of 3 so-called NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that have enormous influence on the state's Democratic Party. Since they constantly work with the government, Congress has the right to audit them. This time, Congress decided to investigate the lobbyists. Union representatives believe that they should either follow United States law or that the law doesn't matter to them, and what matters is victory, the victory of their ideology. The question was actually very simple. Do you think votes should be counted in elections? Only United States citizens can elect the President, Congress, and the Senate as stated in the Constitution. Or do you think that any person who comes in for full voting can cast their vote for someone? Is that what you're saying? Based on this, it will be explained who will govern the United States of America. Therefore, the one who can be a person, meaning someone who came in, could be a person who broke the law of the United States of America. He came to the territory of our country without asking our permission, then committed 1, 2, or more serious crimes there. Then he went to vote. Does such a person have the right to participate in voting? Here is Arizona, the state of Arizona. Should their votes be counted?
Channel, do you think that people must be citizens of the United States in order to vote in elections in Arizona?
I'm representing the organization on this bill and have already shared these views.
Does the organization you represent here believe that people should be citizens of the United States in order to vote in elections in Arizona?
It seems absolutely clear. The answer should be, of course, naturally what the law says, but is that really the case? It's just that when the Democratic Party demands something different, it's fine with them if something else happens. And the party is much more important to them than the law, the Constitution, or even that thing you came up with called the truth.
That's a question I need to come back to for an answer because I don't know, Mr. Chairman. That's not an answer.
So on this specific question, the representative, well, the lobbyist, I don't know, the organization that belongs to the Democratic Party of the United States of America, cannot give an answer. Well, he doesn't know. He needs to consult with his colleagues. Following the law is a very difficult question, or not following it. Following the Constitution or not following it is a difficult question. Our senior comrades will teach us. Here is another beauty, representing another organization, also democratic, also a lobbying group, also working on recruiting potential voters. That is, just a second, she is recruiting potential voters. How does she not know who has the right to vote? If she doesn't know that, how is she going to recruit? Who is she going to recruit if she doesn't know who has the right to vote? Well, let's listen to what she has to say.
Dimatorzok, my name is Jody Lee. I'm here on behalf of Luch.
Does the organization Luch believe that people must be citizens of the United States in order to vote in elections in the state of Arizona?
I believe I don't have a direct answer to that from Luch, and I think that, of course, they believe that all taxpayers should have access to democracy.
That was some kind of word salad. Non-citizens in Arizona pay taxes regardless of their status. Does Luch think they should be allowed to vote just because they pay taxes?
I'm not ready to make a statement on behalf of the organization.
I think she came up with a great answer. I don't feel comfortable when I have to answer this difficult question. Well, on that level, you know, like in second grade, someone was late to class and the teacher asks, "Why are you late?" So answers like that start coming up. Yeah, and what do you think? Is this a simple question or is it a really difficult one? Let's remember this moment because we'll come back to it.
A sly smirk is right on her face. Does SGS believe that people should be United States citizens to vote in elections in Arizona?
And SLY believes that elections should be fair and accessible to everyone who is eligible.
That's a United States citizen, Sly.
Yes.
That's an American aloe.
It would be even funnier if I showed you how people like them answer the question of what is the difference between a man and a woman. By the way, someday I'll get around to it and make a compilation. The senators just have fun every time a hardcore Democrat comes in. Someone who's as shady as they come. Well, I mean, it's obvious they're lying with every word, right? They immediately ask him a question. Could you please tell us, for example, what is the difference between a man and a woman? And they laugh when these people try to wriggle and squirm like a fish on a frying pan, trying to somehow get out of this tricky situation. In the end, the Republicans started to get really shocked.
The American people are demanding that Senate Majority Leader John Thune put to a vote the bill to protect Americans' voting rights and introduce a citizenship verification requirement for voter registration. We have this unique moment in history with Donald Trump at the helm, with a Republican government holding a triple majority. I believe we need to put an end to this filibuster and pass law after law.
The interview went viral, prompting senators to act. Senator John Cornyn said he spoke with Leader Thune about the Secure and Fair Enforcement Act. Senators Katie Britt and Dave McCormick joined as co-authors, and several others, like Rick Scott, publicly increased their support. Here is Senator Scott last week.
However we do it, okay, whether it's part of a spending bill this week, whether it's a separate bill, whatever it is, we're going to have to stay there. We'll filibuster if needed, whatever it takes to pass this. We need to secure the elections. I can't imagine a Republican senator voting against requiring proof of citizenship for registration and voting. Well, I don't know how anyone like a Democrat could be against that.
I can't imagine that either. But 100% of Democrats, well, maybe except for one senator, will all vote against requiring voters to show their identification when coming to the polls. Democrats can't explain this, and that's why they avoid the topic. They go into a state of hysteria, and some even fake heart attacks. Just so, God forbid, it doesn't happen. And this is where things get really interesting.
Talia is getting up now. The number of co-authors is now 49, and the Senate Majority Leader John Thune said this week that he will allow a vote.
They're still working on the bill. Currently, it requires citizenship to register, but not residency to vote. That has been fixed and taken into account, and I think the new bill that will come out will hopefully solve this problem. But I mean, at some point we will vote.
How are the Democrats taking advantage of the fact that they are not allowing the passage of a law that only citizens of the United States of America can vote? Yes, it's very simple. They are already rigging the elections, according to several experts. Only United States citizens will be able to vote, and immediately. The Democratic Party will have to forget for the next 100 years about ever being able to run our country.
The fraud in Fulton County is becoming more shocking every day. Now there is new information from a state senator that clearly shows how the voter rolls were falsified. Do you remember Senator Greg Delazelle, who called Fani Willis to his committee and questioned her about Georgia's election files? She didn't want to hand them over, she didn't want to answer his questions, and now the FBI has full possession of all of them, but he published it online. He mentioned United Parcel Service stores, empty buildings, and fake addresses. Following Nick Shirley's method, he personally went to the location to knock on doors and find out what was going on. He said, "This is all that's on the voter rolls in Fulton County, and it violates Georgia state law. We have serious questions about foreign interference in our elections." Former intelligence chief Nicolas Maduro is now in custody and claims interference definitely occurred. Meanwhile, Rudy Giuliani shared a video with footage of the search in Fulton County, posting photos of everything that was happening there. We all remember Rudy was targeted by Fani Willis and others during this long, difficult ordeal. And in this photo, we see a bunch of people there with a lot of cars, everyone is uploading files, and here is another photo. A lot of cars are arriving at the site at the same time, loading these trucks, and these are big trucks. There are a lot of files that need to be checked, but although there is certainly fraud in those files and in those trucks, We also know that the entire voter registration process in Georgia can be problematic because people can simply list their residence, which gives them the right to vote anywhere. And apparently, no one is checking this. Here is Senator standing near a United Parcel Service store explaining exactly what's happening.
All right, folks, yesterday I made a serious accusation at a state Senate meeting that the DARJ lists in Fulton County were, are, and remain a complete mess, and today we're going to show you the proof. In Georgia, it's illegal to register to vote from anywhere other than your primary residence. You can't register at an OPS station, a United Parcel Service shelter, or under overpasses, yet this is still happening today. Fulton County voter rolls from January 5th show homeless people registered to vote here. We'll show more locations to prove this isn't a coincidence. Fulton County needs to restore order. Friends, the address is 850 Oak Street, Fulton County, where 19 voters are registered to an abandoned house. All responsibility is with the Fulton County Registrar. They just need to clean up the voter rolls. This issue has existed for a long time.
You see, the Democratic Party resorts to any deception, forgery, or crime in order to stay in power. The president and law enforcement heads are at the top, no longer representing the country, but rather an ideology, a party, and especially their own interests. Well, down to the minor officials who gave people addresses where hundreds could register, or simply entered addresses into the lists of people who were never citizens, never lived there. And the middle level, like the State Assembly Congress, fought to the death, refusing to allow legality in voting, because as soon as you introduce legality, the Democratic Party loses, and loses badly. In other words, Clinton and Obama, Fannie Willis, a secretary in the Democratic Party office, lobbyists and staff, everyone knew they were lying, everyone knew they were committing crimes, everyone knew this was the direct opposite of the laws and the Constitution of our country. Nevertheless, without a moment's hesitation, they stole, snitched, deceived, cheated, and as we already know, tried to kill. And even then, when they succeeded, they killed. The good people were the members of the Democratic Party of the United States. We all laughed that in Russia it only means the Duma, or whatever it's called. Just scoundrels. Do you think it's any different here? Unfortunately, there are almost no decent people. The closest and biggest problem for the Republicans is the elections. Well, I mean this November. If the Democrats manage to get a majority in Congress, then basically everything Trump is trying to do now, both inside and outside the country, will be stopped, and at the very least, obstacles will be put in the way, and maybe he won't be allowed to finish what he started. In addition, investigations, impeachments, and most likely Trump's entire agenda will be largely halted. That's why all the attention of the White House is focused on creating conditions inside the country in which the majority of the population would go vote for the Republican Party. The second condition for winning in the so-called midterm elections, these are the ones between the presidential elections, then 2 years later, the midterms. There, it's not the president, but members of Congress, members of the Senate, senators, judges, various governors, and so on. So, in these midterm elections, you need to provide proof to the people that the opposing party is behaving a certain way. And for many years, they have behaved terribly and have not acted according to the letter or the spirit of the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America. The Democrats are trying to prove that federal law enforcement agencies are overstepping their authority and that Trump is behaving like a dictator. This includes immigration and customs enforcement and others. The task of the Trump administration is to open a number of cases against high-ranking officials of the Democratic Party. Well, both former and current officials, meaning those who held positions under Biden, those who held positions under Obama, and those who are still functionaries of the Democratic Party, or just in politics generally, to show people the Democratic Party is full of liars, frauds, and thieves. It's not difficult. I mean, it's not hard to find such people. It's harder to prove it. And as a result, they act not to improve life in the United States of America, but to improve the lives of members of the Democratic Party, just like the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Leningrad was surrounded. Of course, they could have delivered food, but they didn't. Stalin canceled it. He didn't allow food to be delivered. Forget them. No one cares if they die. But the people who worked in the city committees, regional committees, and so on, they ordered sturgeon, had white bread, and there were those who died from obesity during the blockade. During the blockade, they died from obesity. In January 1926, the House Oversight Committee voted to hold Bill and Hillary Clinton in what is called contempt of Congress. This was for refusing to appear for questioning regarding the Epstein investigation. If the entire House of Representatives approves this contempt, the case will go to the Department of Justice and then to court. And the former president, as well as the former Secretary of State, could be sent to jail for several months, just like they jailed appointed members of the Republican Party. Since the end of 2025, a broad investigation into the alleged conspiracy against Trump began, based on the work of a grand jury. I've talked about this many times already, about what it is, and several different episodes from leaks to possible abuses in obtaining wiretap warrants. For example, in practice, this means that those at the greatest risk of being charged, imprisoned, and so on are not the top figures like Obama and Clinton, but rather the mid and high-level operatives. These are former directors and deputies, as well as lawyers from the FBI, CIA, intelligence agencies, and organizations who could sign documents, give testimony, initiate surveillance, and have contacts with the press, like Obama. And the Democrats call all of this absolute conspiracy theory and baseless, emphasizing that they mean the intelligence conclusions. In 2017, Russian interference was backed by skilled professionals and was not deemed a criminal conspiracy by the court. Therefore, further intelligence depends not only on legal facts, but also on the political balance. The Republican majority in the House today can initiate the agenda, but it is the Justice Department and the courts that will decide whether to turn the case into real negotiations or if it will remain part of the larger political war around Trump. The task is to make them subjects of investigation, questioning, and all kinds of subpoenas to Congress. In reality, bringing actual criminal charges against a former president requires extraordinary, strong, and clear evidence. And in American practice, such a step is, as far as I can remember, extremely rare. Let's say, since there likely haven't been any. Of course, Nixon was involved a couple of times, but that was a completely different, clear situation, so to speak. Everyone confessed, everything was out in the open, and besides, those were different times, maybe more hypocritical, maybe more moral. I don't know. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard stated that she has evidence of a conspiracy by the Obama administration and officially handed over the materials to the Justice Department with a recommendation to initiate criminal prosecution. The Justice Department is launching a major investigation into the conspiracy, which may include a grand jury and charges against officials involving intelligence and law enforcement agencies. Specifically, who and at what level these people are is still unknown, but we can only speculate. I think that before the elections, it's not even necessary for the jury to agree that the top officials of the Democratic Party are guilty. Formal guilt isn't as important as the dirty laundry that will be aired right in front of the public. The Democratic Party, which is also often called the Liberal Party, will do everything it can to deceive the public, and the press will help it by either keeping the whole story quiet or presenting it in a way that is completely opposite to reality. That's why this summer we'll see a battle between the Republican propaganda machine, which will try to publicize everything that's happening. What the Democrats did during Obama and Biden, and of course what was done during Trump's first term, Trump 45. Trump 45. The Democrats will do everything they can to prevent anything being discussed in the courts from reaching the ears of potential voters. As I understand it, at the end of spring, we can expect shocking reports about who is on trial, what they are being tried for, and what the charges are. Throughout the entire summer, we can expect dirty laundry to be dragged out, arguments from every corner, and, as I already said, all of this will be aired in front of the whole world. Of course, I don't know who will win this game, but I do know one thing. It's disgusting, but very interesting. I'm sure the Democrats are also sitting around coming up with something to happen at the same time to distract attention from the nightmare they've created. Well, during the time spent in the White House, starting from the Clintons and up to Biden, and also during the 4 years that Trump was in power, I'm very interested in your opinion on whether there will be trials and punishment for the leadership of the CIA, FBI, and a number of other mid-level officials whom the Democratic Party invited to play this game. They went along happily and enthusiastically. I'm not asking you. Both Obama and Clinton punished the judges because it's almost impossible. I would really like it to happen, but most likely it won't. But for us, it will be enough to have a few high-profile cases with verdicts against the heads of executive organizations. I'm sure one of them will start to sing and spill the beans. They'll tell absolutely everything, even things they weren't asked about, and what they were asked, and what they weren't asked, and something extra on top of that. This has happened many times before, and I suspect it will happen again more than once. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. I was glad to have the opportunity to share with you. It's interesting, and I hope that the courts will treat this the same way we do, that evil must be punished, and great evil must be punished seriously, severely. If you're interested in something, please write to me. I read the comments, so I'll be glad to try to cover what you consider the most important and interesting. Until we meet again.